Thanks to Trista Prez for this comment and for becoming a new follower. The short answer is no, there is no evidence that Atlantis existed as a real place. You will certainly hear lots of disagreement about that, especially among New Agers, but there's no actual archaeological evidence for it. And given what we know about plate tectonics, it certainly seems very unlikely. But the idea, as you say, goes back to Plato, specifically his books Timaeus and Critias, and he may have gotten the idea from Solon, who was an Athenian statesman, and he might have gotten the idea in turn from some Egyptian mythology, but again, these are myths, and there's no actual archaeological evidence behind. The idea was then taken up by other authors in the Western canon, most famously Thomas More, who wrote a book called Utopia in the 16th century, and then Francis Bacon wrote a book the following century about Atlantis, and then lots of other authors as well, and some of them claimed that it was an allegory, a myth that was designed to tell the tale of a hubristic power that got too big for its britches, basically, and sunk beneath the ocean. And other authors have insisted, no, it's a real place. And one of the people who did insist on this was a guy named Ignatius Donnelly. And in 1882, he wrote a book about Atlantis. And his idea, he was a U.S. congressman, by the way, and his ideas were picked up by Madame Blavatsky, who again asserted that Atlantis was a real place. And then unfortunately, some of her ideas were picked up by the Ariosophists, and then we start getting into Yahtzeism and a certain author who made a connection between Atlantis and a place called Hyperborea, which was supposedly the place of the Aryans, Nordic people of advanced intelligence and all that. And that's where the Yahtzes got a lot of their ideas for, doing very, very horrible things. Now, Blavatsky wrote about the Atlanteans as one of the root races, but to her credit, she did not say that they were white people. She actually said that they were olive-skinned people who were probably the ancestors of Native Americans and people from Mongolia and Tibet. The idea of Atlantis was also put forward by another New Ager, Edgar Cayce, the so-called sleeping psychic who would go into a visionary trance state by entering into a hypnagogic state, which is the state between sleep and wakefulness. And he would talk about people who were reincarnated from Atlantis. But as I said at the top, there really is no evidence for Atlantis existing. There are lots of tales, there are lots of insinuations, there are lots of theories, but so far, no real evidence.